Now I'm at the point where I could introduce those 4 thoughts which turn the mind to the Dharma. This is a traditional headline which is behind this title, What Makes Life Meaningful? 4 thoughts and meditations that can help us realize life's potential. And I focused mainly until now about what could make life meaningful, no? And how important is the spiritual path or spiritual practice to have a meaningful life and why it is meaningful. But what we didn't cover are the 4 thoughts and the life's potential. So this comes now in only 45 minutes. Maybe I just, to speed up a little bit, I mentioned the 4 thoughts, the 4 thoughts which turn the mind towards the Dharma. And maybe just to explain the term Dharma. If you have understood that happiness depends on the mind, it becomes clear that you need methods for the mind to change the mind, to transform the mind. Like if you understand the problems with stinginess, you can't go in a pharmacy and ask for some pills to get rid of your stinginess, because stinginess is a process in your mind. You need a method in the mind to overcome stinginess. You can also not buy any medicine to be more generous. You can buy medicine to be not so excited, but mainly it makes your mind a bit more dull or something like this, or it reduces to objects or how you experience the objects. But it's not a real solution if you really look. And also if you have a lot of attachment, there might be some ways, but it's not really, what to say, it might reduce the desire, but the attachment is not really overcome. So, and from this you can learn, actually, if you really want to change the mind, you need methods for the mind, which change the mind. And this is what the Buddha did. The Buddha abandoned his principality, and being the successor of his father, and went into the forest. And there he didn't have much material things. He had only methods to work on the mind. He worked on the mind. And by working on the mind and changing the mind, he achieved everything. So that's why, if we understand this, our happiness depends on our mental qualities, on our mind primarily. All the other things are secondary conditions, are not totally unimportant, but they are not of the prime importance. And the Buddha, who abandoned all those things, achieved all the things he was looking for. Makes clear that actually we need more time to focus inwards, to work on our mind. And then the question is, what are the methods to change the mind? And as I just said, material medicine is not the quiet method. You need methods which are really working with the mind. So these are mental methods, you could say, or how could you say, methods for the mind. And all those methods for the mind, which change the mind towards the positive and help the mind to get rid of the negative stuff, they are summarized in the term Dharma. Dharma actually has many, many meanings, I think 18 meanings, and it's a term in Sanskrit which existed already in the time before the Buddha, but in Buddhism we could say Dharma mainly means all the teachings the Buddha gave to achieve those 2 aims, to become happy and to become free of suffering. And sometimes they also give a number. They say there are 84,000 teachings by the Buddha, 21,000 teachings related to attachment, 21,000 teachings related to aversion or hostility or anger, and 21,000 teachings related to ignorance, and 21,000 teachings related to all improper mental attention or other mind poisons or negative emotions. But I think this is rather something like, what to say, you shouldn't take it literally, no? Mm-hmm. Like an image or something. It's a lot. That's what I want. So now if you understand to achieve your true aims, to become happy, to get rid of suffering, you need methods which change the mind into this direction, which help you to increase your qualities, which help you to decrease those things in your mind which create the suffering. And all those methods the Buddha has taught and are summarized in general as the Dharma. And then from this perspective, it means if you really want to achieve your happiness, you must practice the Dharma. This is what the Buddhists say, but the point of is maybe some of you are not Buddhists, so I cannot come to you and say, hey, practice the Dharma. That's why you can replace this term Dharma. You should apply methods for the mind which change your mind. Be it the Dharma or not the Dharma, it should be something that really changes your mind. And I lost track what I wanted to say. Now I got it back. As I said in the beginning, the Buddha is the expert to achieve those two aims. To attain happiness, ultimate happiness, and to get rid of suffering. And the Tibetan term for a Buddha is Sankhya. And Sankhya means who accomplished all good qualities and abandoned all faults. So the Buddha is someone who has accomplished all the qualities there are and has got rid of all the faults. And that's why he has attained the fulfillment of those wishes. To be happy comes from all the qualities, not to suffer is by having become rid of all the faults. So, and this expert teaches faults. Yeah. Errors.
Yeah.
And this expert, the Buddha, teaches now methods how we can increase our qualities and how we can get rid of our faults. And now, to draw the mind towards those methods, or towards the Dharma, there are now 4 thoughts which help us to build up the enthusiasm really to work on ourselves. Because the problem is, we leave this room, we leave this day retreat, and then many other things pop up, which are more important, until you go to the next day retreat. True, I heard this already. So, and that's why you need some strong methods to keep your mind on your spiritual path. And there are really 4 powerful methods, which I can only introduce now, and maybe I said already to Chesa, we have to continue, or someone else has to continue about these methods. And this is the thinking about the precious human life we have now, thinking about death and impermanence. This is a very strong, most wonderful, powerful method. Then thinking about karma, and then thinking about the nature of our existence. So these are the 4 thoughts. And if we meditate about those 4 thoughts, our motivation to work on our inner development and to change our inner attitudes, as well as our enthusiasm, energy, and also our mental freedom to actually do it, increase tremendously, especially with the meditation on death and impermanence. And I have still in mind to try today to do this meditation with you, but I'm not so sure if I'm able to manage this. But it's so powerful, it's so useful, it's so most wonderful, and it helps a lot. But maybe we go step by step. So first is the thought about the precious human life, and actually the precious human life has 3 subdivisions, or to say 3 headlines. The first is recognizing the 8 freedoms and 10 enrichments or 10 endowments, then realizing the potential of this life, and then the third, realizing how rare and precious it is to have this human life. A human life which enables us to follow a spiritual path. There is much human life, but not necessarily that you have the conditions and the inner openness to follow such a path. This is rare. So this is the first type of meditation. This is already quite complex. And then there is the meditation on death and impermanence. And I start now a little bit in another order to explain this meditation about precious human life by focusing first on this life's potential, which is also a word in our title of our today course. The question is, what is the potential of our life? What can we make out of our life? And here the answer is if you see in yourself that you want to be happy and that you don't want to suffer, you can realize you can achieve happiness. Okay. If you understand a little bit the causes of happiness, or if you have some experience, you can even understand, I can achieve even more happiness. It's very easy. If you imagine, I feel so happy if I see my small puppy or my kid. If I would have this feeling towards every sentient being, how much happy must I be? Like the Dalai Lama. He enjoys meeting every sentient being. He's always happy to meet anybody. He is full of happiness, but this comes from his inner attitude, from his love, from his compassion. So he cultivated it. And that's why wherever there is a human being, this being is a cause of the happiness of the Dalai Lama. Imagine this would be our situation. Wherever there is a human being, we are totally happy, like the Dalai Lama when he sees someone. Would be quite nice. So then if you understand, okay, if I find the methods which really help me to cultivate the causes of happiness, I will be a happier person. Now the question is, where do you set the boundary? How much happiness do you want to have? And there's another thing, you can understand also that happiness, you can be happy, but happiness ceases. Happiness is an impermanent phenomenon. It's created by causes and conditions, and naturally it's impermanent. So where happiness ends, there is the end of happiness. And this again is a type of suffering. And it changes either into a state of a neutral feeling or into suffering. So that's why using the life's potential is more than just being a bit more happy than previously. Actually, it is to attain a state where happiness is ultimate and never ending. Or to attain a state where not only our suffering is reduced, or we have the capacity to cope with our suffering in a way that our mental happiness is not really disturbed, and we might be even happy. One can be mentally happy while one has physical pain. This is really possible, it's no problem. You can do this. But you need some training to do this, but it's possible. So even if you have this type of freedom, you still will have here and there some sufferings, and happiness will also end, certain types of happiness you enjoyed. So then it always will come to a point where what you once longed, happiness and the freedom of suffering, changes into the opposite, where you have no happiness and you have suffering again. So that's why a meaning of life is to achieve these states ultimately in a way that the state of happiness and the cessation of suffering never ever ends. And this is also possible. So you can use, this is now the Buddhist teaching, you can use this life to achieve happiness in future lives, and on the way, not as the primary focus, also more happiness in this life. The problem is here that most of you, or many of you, or some of you might not even consider future life. And this is maybe not much convincing if I start to discuss this too much. But the Buddhist understanding is that our consciousness exists since beginningless time and is endless. And the consciousness is not created by the brain. By the brain. The consciousness is not created by the brain. That's why if the brain ceases to function, the coarse mind also ceases to function, which is related to the brain, but not the subtle mind, or subtler states of mind, which are not created or caused by the brain. So there is a consciousness which exists since beginningless time and has certain states, coarse states, subtle states, very subtle states, and is also in the process of changing. And this state, this mind is at that time connected with this body. And at the time of death in Buddhism, from Buddhist understanding, is the consciousness has to leave the body or disconnects from the body, and will find another body, and then next life continues on the basis of another body. So, in this beginningless and endless process, consciousness was always permeated by those two wishes, to be happy and not to suffer. And at least in our experience, we can confirm wherever there is mind, there are these wishes. We have it in our dreams. We have it when we were a baby. We will have it now. We have it at this very moment. We will have it afterwards. We will have it tomorrow, and we are retired. We will have it at the time of death, wherever there is consciousness. So, and that's why we will also have those wishes in the next life. and in the next life, and in the next life, in the next life, and the next life. And then the Buddhist understanding is those future lives are more than this life. That's why this life would be used well if I use this life to cultivate causes of happiness which help all my future lives, because they are longer than this life. But this perspective is difficult to adopt if you are not convinced about this and if you have not thought about this. That's why I gave a lot of this type of introductory talk, because I think it would have been too hard for some people to find meaning with these types of explanation, though for me they make perfectly sense. Now, if you use this life to cultivate qualities like love and compassion, concentration and so on, this is the only thing you can take into your future lives, because you cannot take material possessions. Also, all your good deeds, or also my good deeds, all the good deeds we have done, including the bad deeds we have done, those things stick with our mind, and they will continue into the next life. That's why when we are reborn, or when there is a new birth, our mind will have certain preconditions already. It's not blank. You might have inclinations to kill, you might have inclinations to protect life. And this depended on the ethics you cultivated in this life or lives before. You also might have a natural inclination to love other people, you see, or you might have a natural inclination to hate others, even if your parents are very kind to you. And this is then, you could say, the heritage we bring from this life into the next life. And then giving life meaning means to use this life to cultivate qualities and create good karma, so that we experience happy lives, life after life in the coming lives. Not to be too much preoccupied with this life and the needs of this life, but rather using this life to find time to create the causes that we have a fortunate rebirth next time, because it will be difficult to become a human being again. And even if you are a human being, there is no guarantee that you are born under such circumstances as you are born now. Highly likely not, because maybe only 20% of humankind have these conditions as we have, and 80% have more difficult conditions. So there's no guarantee to achieve this. And that's why in Buddhism we use this life also, we give this life a meaning by considering past and future lives and putting this life into perspective as one of many lives, like a grain of sand on the shore. And one single grain on the shore usually does not have any meaning from its own side. But if you can change with this one grain, all the grains on the shore, this grain has really meaning, because it was the cause to change the whole shore. In the same way, this is just one life of many. But in all those lives, we looked for happiness and we wanted to be free of suffering. Now, if we use this life well, we can determine, or influence the direction of all future lives we take, and how we experience those lives inwards, and also what outer conditions we will have. And that's why Buddhists think about past and future lives and see this life in the perspective of future lives, and then give meaning to this life by performing actions in this life which are not necessarily only helpful at the moment, but also helpful in the long run. For instance, if you use some time to help someone else, sometimes it can be, helping others can involve some difficulties and struggle, and not necessarily it feels very joyfully. Now, if you do such a good action like helping others, and you don't really rejoice and are joyfully with it, the potential that from this action in the future, as the result of this karma, happiness arises is quite weak. You will have an effect, but if you do it more joyfully, the effect will be far greater, it is said. Now, if you notice, you could use your life by cultivating joy in doing good things. And as a side effect, first of all, you are happier while you are doing this work, and as the long-term effect, you will experience much help in future lives. If the karma ripens also in this life, people will naturally be happy to help you. And you will also experience this type of help you once gave to others with joy, also as being very joyful. So if someone helps you, you're also joyful. So, and it's very important thing in Buddhism to do positive or virtuous activity like helping others or working on our mind, doing meditation, listening to the Dharma with a joyful mind. So, and then using life's potential has then two, you could say, from that perspective, two meanings. You use this life to cultivate qualities in yourself, like love, compassion, and all those qualities help you already immediately. Those qualities, if they are strong enough, and also the tendency to work on those qualities, also this tendency to work on yourself, this you take with your heritage, you could say, in the next life. This will be your good companion. But we also take all the good and the bad actions into the next life. That's why Buddhists also use this life to do as good as they can, as much as they can, positive actions. And the first positive action is to restrain to harm others. Just stopping to harm others, not shouting on others, not hurting others by speech or by body, is a good action. So that's why Buddhists give their life meaning by restraining from harming others and understanding this will only lead to good results for myself. The point is, of course, for others, but the mind is egoistic. That's why it starts from this perspective. It will help myself to stop to harm others. Later, if our compassion becomes stronger, or if our compassion is already strong, we also understand immediately this is also good for others. If we don't steal from them, if we don't kill them, if we help them, if we are generous to them, and so on. So you give your life meaning by restraining from harming others, by doing good for others or cultivating qualities, and by taming your mind. And this is a summary the Buddha gave with respect to his teachings: restrain to harm others, do virtues or do good, and tame your mind. And as a result, we influence how we experience future lives, the conditions we will meet, as well how we relate to those conditions. And only as a side effect, also our present life will have some improvements. But the interesting point is the Dharma, Buddha's teachings, are not so much meant to improve this life. I have to say this because this is just what the text says. And some texts say spiritual practice starts only when you consider future lives. I'm not so sure, but this is it's a great master who said this, Atisha. My understanding is, even if I don't consider future lives, and I just go to therapy, and I have a good therapist, and this person helps me to cope with my anger or my stinginess, and I can let go some of it. And I'm a bit more generous and a bit more patient. If I consider future lives or not, this definitely will help me also in future lives. Because I worked on myself. And I got rid of negative mental attitudes, which also create karma, and I cultivated some positive qualities like patience, which create tremendous good karma. So I will take this with me anyway, if I believe in future lives or not. But the real Buddhist perspective is rather this extremely long-term perspective. Since beginning this time, we want to be happy and rid of suffering. We have nothing achieved so far. I mean, something like a profound state we can rest in and say, that's it. Now I can relax. Like the Buddha. No. And the prediction is, if we don't change this situation, it will continue like this. And actually, this is already our experience. Now, of course, sometimes we have better periods in life as things turn out very good, but then also this changes again, and sooner or later we must face that and to lose everything. So then, using life's potential then would mean I use my life to be happier from a long-term perspective and to have less suffering from a long-term perspective, and I take responsibility by working into a direction that I have also a happy rebirth in the next life and good conditions so that I can be happy. Because if I don't have these conditions, and if I don't have some qualities, it will be very difficult for me to be happy. It is not so much the idea of Buddhism just to be happy in the here and now. This is rather the side effect. But it's not wrong to look for it, but it has some fallacies. It brings some fallacies with it, because if you only think, I must be happy now, I must be happy now, and then you do some meditation, and then at one point you realize how much you are full of pride, or full of hate. This is not nice to look at. Feels a bit ugly. No, this is not what I wanted. I want to be happy. No, I don't. This type of meditation is not good for me. I want something nice, and then you go to courses where people are nice and say you are good, everything is okay. But inwardly it's not really okay. And then you have to have some strength to look on it and to go through it. And then if you stick too much to the happiness of the moment, you don't have the flexibility in mind to accept, okay, it's not very pleasant to see my thoughts, not very pleasant to see my pride, my hate and so on, and or this negative pattern. But so what? It's good that I see it, because now I can work on it, and then in the long-term perspective I get free of this problem. But if you don't have this long-term perspective, you get unhappy if you see on what you should work, and you don't have the willingness or the intention to work on it. So that's why it's important from a Buddhist point of view, or from a spiritual perspective, to let go all the clinging to I must be happy now in the here and now. And that's why I found this very helpful to have this long-term perspective also for future lives. For me, I'm convinced about it. There are also many reasons, and I have a lot of thought about it. So for me, it's not a topic, but I found it for myself extremely useful to let go. Also, that I cannot achieve everything in this life. It's just not possible. And this helps me a lot to relax how it is now. So this long-term perspective is already useful to be happy in the here and now, because I don't cling too much on my present current situation. Rather, I ask myself, okay, if this is the situation, this is not what I wanted. The question is rather, what do I make out of it? And this became rather my mantra. Usually I say, it doesn't matter what appears to me. It doesn't matter what I experience. What matters is how I respond to it, how I relate to it, and if I can make the best use out of it. And the thing is, if you have this type of thinking, actually everything is okay for you. Right? The question is always, what can I make out of it? From the spiritual perspective. And if you have a spiritual perspective, you are not carried away too much by what is now and if you like it or don't like it. And that's why I find it very useful to have this long-term perspective about the future lives and to understand this. But for those people for whom it is not possible, it's also okay. As I said, it will still work. Then there is another point to make this life meaningful, which is we can achieve more happiness. Maybe we can say there are 4 things we can achieve. More happiness in this life, less suffering in this life, by just cultivating some qualities. Perfectly fine. The question is why you draw a limit to your happiness. If you are a little bit happier, good. And if it is okay for you, it's also good. But actually, this happiness doesn't last too long. So it would be better to have more happiness. So then you can achieve more happiness than you have now. You can have longer periods of experience happiness. But all those states of happiness, you can have happy rebirths in realms where you only have pleasant feelings or neutral feelings. There are not even the experience of painful feelings in mind or body. They don't exist in certain type of existences or realms where you can take birth. But all those existences and feelings and states, they end. And at the end of the happiness, suffering comes. And that's why, from Buddhist understanding, it would be good to read a lasting state of happiness, joy and peace, or a lasting state of freedom of suffering. And these are only the 3 types of nirvana or awakening you could achieve. There is the nirvana or the awakening of a Shravaka. There is the nirvana and the awakening of a Pratyeka Buddha, and there is the nirvana and awakening of a Buddha, of a fully enlightened one. And only those 3 types of awakening are lasting states. Whoever has achieved this state has abandoned all the causes of suffering and can never experience any more suffering. You can experience, interesting, as long as you have the body, you can experience physical suffering, but not mental suffering. Because you don't get upset anymore if there is any physical suffering. You don't have aversion to it anymore. And the mind is at peace and peaceful. And the funny point is, at that time, you have a painful feeling, but you have a peaceful mind that is totally calm. And this peaceful, calm mind goes along with a pleasant feeling, which means you have a double experience. The mind is peaceful, the mental consciousness is peaceful, and there is a happy feeling going along with this peaceful mind. And there is a physical sensation of pain, which might go along with an unpleasant feeling. But this mental pleasant feeling overpowers this unpleasant, painful feeling. And that's why your peace of mind and happiness of mind is not really affected even by physical pain. There are some slight doctrinal disputes about all of this, but I don't want to make it too complicated. There is the saying that some arhats, who has achieved such a state of nirvana, is called an arhat, or arhant in Pali, that they can experience certain type of confusion in mind, which also go along with unpleasant mental feelings. But there is some discussion about it. And then they discriminate between someone who has attained nirvana with these aggregates or with this body, and someone who has died after having attained nirvana. And this person who has died, this person who has attained nirvana and has died, this person achieved a nirvana. You could say maybe parinirvana, or achieves nirvana, which is, they call it technically without reminder. You don't have any more this body. So at that moment, you can never get sick anymore, you can never die, but you also won't have any more a family or kids anymore. Because what you did, you cut through this ceaseless circle of taking birth, getting old, experience suffering, sometimes experiencing joy, and dying. And all of the time looking for happiness and never finding it. But we go through this process due to causes and conditions which are explained in the Four Truths, and you have stopped this process. And that's why you attain the ultimate happiness. But you are not anymore taking rebirth in this cyclic existence. It's finished. It's the end. Now, then there is a third type of nirvana, which I mentioned already. This is the enlightenment or the nirvana of a Buddha. And a Buddha has also left this circling and cyclic existence behind him. But now it depends on what tradition you follow. But according to the Mahayana tradition, he has the potential to manifest different forms to help sentient beings to achieve their aims, or to teach the doctrine to help them to find their lasting peace and happiness. So now we could use our life, to bring it back, to be more happy in this life, to create the causes of happiness in future lives, and go with qualities and good karma into the next life to have happy lives in the future. Or we can use this life to achieve the nirvana of a Shravaka, which basically means you've abandoned forever the cause of suffering and you can never ever achieve suffering again. You have fulfilled this purpose, and when there is no suffering, there's only happiness. So it's just what to say, there's no suffering anymore there, so you have achieved what you wanted, be free of suffering, and this is mainly happiness. Sometimes they also speak about, but there is a discussion about this, but I don't want to make it too complicated. They speak about mundane happiness and supramundane happiness. You experience a type of happiness which is free from clinging. Fear that it goes away, or clinging that it should stay with you, or aversion against potential causes which could destroy your happiness. Now, going back to what we had initially, I want to be happy, I want to be free from suffering. Others want to be happy, others want to be free from suffering. If you achieve your own nirvana, you have fulfilled your purpose. Everybody of us had fulfilled whatever we wanted, we have achieved. And Buddhahood goes a bit beyond. The Buddha has achieved his own purpose and is able to help everybody else to achieve the same. That's why, from a realistic, distant, wisdom perspective, you could say the best we could do if we have the capacity to attain the state of a Buddha, to attain full awakening, full enlightening, because then we have achieved our own purpose, we are happy, we have everlasting happiness, it can never end, we are rid from all the sufferings, we have cultivated all the qualities we can cultivate, we have brought them to perfection. Perfection, I give you an example of perfection. There is the perfection of generosity. If you have a perfection, you can never ever be overcome anymore by stinginess. It's not possible. The perfection of effort. Effort in the beginning needs some exertion, you need some strength to do it. Perfection means it's not the slightest effort, it's natural to do good. It's just like the sun doesn't need exertion to shine or to send sun rays. And if you are a Buddha, you don't need any effort anymore to do good for sentient beings. It's just natural. This is what they say, at least in the Maya tradition. Now, and then there is more to say, like with respect to the perfection of generosity. It is said a bodhisattva who has attained a certain type of level, he's not yet a Buddha, when he hears a voice who says, give, or give me, he experiences a bliss that is greater than is being experienced by someone who has attained nirvana. And sometimes I think for myself, what do I experience when someone says, give to me, give something to me, a beggar or something like this? Is there really this tremendous joy, like the Bodhisattva is said has? And so if you follow this path, you cultivate all those qualities and they are led towards a perfection where this quality totally enrich you and all the faults which contradict those qualities have been totally overcome. And on that basis you have fulfilled your own aims and you are perfectly able to fulfill the aims of others. And actually this is the wisest to use this life. If I understand I want to be happy, others want to be happy, and there is a way to achieve it for myself and others, this is the best way. I think, at least for me, I don't know how it is for you. But they also say it depends a little bit on the perspective, and the capacity. For the Bodhisattva path, where you achieve this full enlightenment, is very long. It's very long, and usually they say it includes some hardships, but they also differentiate this a little bit. And to just attain your own nirvana is also not that easy, but it's easier. So that's why you have the freedom to use your life to have more happiness in this life, to use your life to have also happiness in this and in future life, to use your life to have happiness in this and future lives, and to attain nirvana for yourself, or to be more happy in this life, future lives, attain nirvana in yourself, and also attain the nirvana of a Buddha, where you are able to help all the sentient beings. And this is then actually the Bodhisattva path. So in this way, from this perspective, you could give your life a meaning by saying, since beginning this time, I wanted to be happy, I want to be free from suffering. All the other beings are also looking for it. I use my life to go in this direction and to achieve this aim. And if I cannot continue or finish this in this life, my job, I finish it next life, or hopefully. But you have then also to consider the conditions to be able to continue next life, which mainly is generosity, ethics, and patience. These are three causes for a precious human life. So this is about life's potential, how one can use it. And then for you, I think it means you have to think about, okay, where I am now, what is my life, what do I want, and what type of happiness, what do I want to achieve? Just happiness in the here and now, in this life, future lives, one types of these nirvanas, or even this great purpose, full enlightenment. This is totally in your hands to decide upon this. And all the decisions are perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong. It's totally your decision. But if you use in any of those four ways your life gets meaningful, because you come closer to what you want. Sometimes it might be useful to imagine or think or feel. Maybe we do this now as the last meditation. How much have I struggled to be happy and to overcome this and that type of problem? How much have I exhausted myself? And how would it be to have finally achieved it? It's coming home. You are there where you always wanted to be, and where you have sometimes been for short periods of time, and you were so happy, but then it disappeared. And maybe we finish with this. We do a small meditation. I just ring the gong. You don't have to sit in formal meditation posture. You can just think relaxed about these points we had today, points which were useful for you, or where you think this would be a good point to consider, and then just you bring back some of those points which were useful for you, and then you relate it to your life, and you think, what can I make out of this? How can I use it? So let come your thought processing to an end, and at the end I will do a small guided meditation to help those who are not yet used to the so-called analytical meditation. And we do now a brief meditation on the precious human life, how it is traditionally be done, and with which usually these thoughts start if we put it into practice and meditate about it. So just relax, it's only 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. Connect with yourself and try to feel that you want to be happy and free from suffering. And then consider, now I have a precious human life. I have a human life which enables me to reflect about my deepest wishes, to be happy, to free from suffering, unlike animals who don't have this capacity to think about their life, the deepest wishes. I have the freedom and time to take time to understand those wishes, and I'm at paths where there are methods which help me to fulfill my wishes, to be happier in this life, future lives, or to achieve one of those 3 types of nirvana. So I want to be happy, and I've met methods that teach how I can achieve this aim. This is more than winning a lottery. Because a lottery can never make us happy in the long run on a mental level or free us totally from suffering, but the spiritual path can really achieve it. And try to cultivate joy about the present situation, that you have the inner openness for the spiritual path, that there are spiritual paths, and that you have an interest in this path, and there are many beings who don't have it. And there was a time where we were not open, and who knows what happens in the future. Now our inner door is open, the outer doors are open, and we can make a connection with the spiritual path. If we use it well, we can achieve our aims. How fortunate we are. Cultivate a feeling of happiness, like if you have found a precious treasure. The treasure is in yourself, your mind, and are the methods which help you to cultivate this mind. And then meditate on this joy for a while to get more and more used to it. Abide in this joy, rest in this joy, be content and happy about your situation. I have everything I need. How wonderful. And then we relax and try to bring this joy, or abide in this joy, or keep this joy in ourselves, and try to do the dedication and finish our meeting and day.
sonandi tamje zipani tamne petranam pamje Kyagana chi bala trupai sibe sole drova sho. By this merit may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemies of thoughts and delusions. May all beings be free from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, the oceans of samsara.
Thank you.
Thank you.